the Young and the Restless Spoilers. In Genoa City, where secrets often lurk behind closed doors and love is a fragile thing, Claire and Kyle's romance had seemed like a bright spot. After a passionate night together, the couple was poised on the brink of a life-changing commitment, marriage. Kyle, swept up in the warmth of the moment, had promised Claire a future full of love and happiness, vowing that they would walk through life side by side. But in the back of Claire's mind, one nagging question remained: could Kyle really stay true to his word? Kyle's dark pattern, the illusion of commitment. Kyle had never been known for his steadfast loyalty. His history of short-lived relationships, where he had failed to stay committed to any woman for longer than a few months, was an open secret. While he seemed sincere in his desire to marry Claire and create a future together, deep down, Kyle's inability to truly respect the women in his life raised doubts about his intentions. His actions in the past had shown a pattern of fleeting affections, a lack of emotional depth that had doomed his previous relationships. As much as Claire wanted to believe in Kyle's promise, she couldn't shake the feeling that the pattern of his past would repeat itself. There was always the fear that once the initial passion wore off, Kyle would become disenchanted, leaving her heartbroken and alone. It wasn't just a fear of being abandoned, it was a fear of being deceived again, of having her trust shattered in the cruelest way possible. Despite her reservations, Claire was about to make a life-altering discovery, one that would change everything. The pregnancy revelation, a turning point. When Claire discovered that she was pregnant, the news hit her like a thunderclap. The signs were unmistakable: her body was changing, her emotions were on a roller coaster, and the constant nausea made it hard to ignore the truth. Claire felt a mixture of excitement and fear. She wasn't sure if she was ready for motherhood, but there was something deeply emotional about carrying a child with Kyle, the man she thought she might spend the rest of her life with. But with the pregnancy came an undeniable truth: everything was changing. The dream of a perfect life with Kyle was no longer just a vision, it was a reality that now had to be navigated. The joy that should have accompanied the news of pregnancy was overshadowed by her growing concerns about Kyle's commitment and the dangerous forces that were already in motion around them. Jordan's fiendish obsession, a mother's desperate bid for control. Jordan, ever the manipulator, had always viewed Claire as a threat to her own desires. But the news of Claire's pregnancy sent her into a frenzy. Jordan had never been one to take challenges lying down, and the thought of her daughter bringing a child into the world with a man like Kyle was enough to send her into a destructive spiral. Jordan had always seen Claire as someone who needed to be controlled, someone whose happiness was secondary to Jordan's own ambitions. The idea that Claire was starting a family with Kyle, a man Jordan did not deem worthy of her daughter's love, was more than Jordan could bear. The tension between mother and daughter reached its peak when Claire and Kyle visited a pregnancy clinic together. Jordan, hiding in the shadows, seethed with fury. She knew this would only complicate things further, making it even harder for her to manipulate the situation to her advantage. If Claire became attached to Kyle in such an irreversible way, it would be harder to tear them apart, and that was something Jordan was unwilling to allow. The ruthless plot: will Jordan go too far? Jordan's obsession with controlling her daughter's future knew no bounds. The prospect of Claire carrying Kyle's child was more than she could tolerate. In her eyes, Claire's pregnancy symbolized a permanent tie to a man who was nothing more than a temporary distraction for her daughter. If Jordan had her way, she would do whatever it took to shatter this dream of happiness, no matter the cost. Could Jordan be ruthless enough to cause Claire to lose her pregnancy? The thought seemed too horrible to imagine, yet in Jordan's twisted mind, there were no limits to what she was capable of. Her hatred for Kyle and her desire to control Claire had led her down a dangerous path, and now, with Claire's pregnancy, she had a new weapon to wield. Jordan's actions were unpredictable, but one thing was certain: she would stop at nothing to see Claire's happiness destroyed. Whether she would go so far as to cause Claire to miscarry was a chilling question that loomed over the entire situation. Her obsession had already led her to manipulate Lucy, and now, with Claire's future hanging in the balance, Jordan was willing to sacrifice anything to see her will enforced.